Hi there, and welcome to the Consultants Growth Playbook, where every week we interview consultants that are actively in the trenches, building and leading business development for successful consulting practices. I'm ready to have Chris Nichols, who's co-founder of GameShift, a UK-based consultancy. So, Chris, welcome onto the podcast.
I'm so glad you said co-founder. That's good.
So, Chris, when I get people onto the podcast, I like to dive straight in and say, is there one particular way that you generate new business or have generated the majority of the new business for your organization?
Yeah, we're tiny. So we're a micro-consultancy. We started off with two of us. Now there's 20 of us. And I would say that the whole thing really has been based on reputation and relationships. What we do is quite edgy at times, and people only buy that from people they trust. So we won business through reputation, relationships. People know us and refer us. Yeah. But you did say the main way. That's not the only way, but I would
Yeah,
say
no,
that is
absolutely.
definitely the main way.
And I must say, so I get this out straight. So I do know Chris a little because I have the absolute pleasure of Chris and his organization being a client of mine at the moment. I'm always fascinated when I talk to Chris about he has done business over the years. So I look at it the way that you said it is your relationship, and it's your network has been one of the biggest drivers of that for you. Would I be right in saying?
Yeah. I think even when I worked for a large business school and large consultancy, before GameShift, I was part of Ashridge, which was one of the oldest UK business schools. I was always curious about people and what they did. So I was always very active on social media, and because I worked in the business school, lots of people crossed my path. And I was just fascinated by them. I had lots of conversations. It led to connections. I suppose in a very small pond, Philippa, my co-founder, and I, we've known. It's a small pond in which to be famous, but it is our pond, so that helps. I think that's what I mean by relationships and network. And I do have quite a large network. Some people, I think, would say they know me, they know us quite well, and some people are much further away and might interact with us once every year or two. But I think it's all still useful.
Oh, fantastic. So just to kind of position where you are. So obviously co-founder again. Congratulations, because I believe you've just won on the Times Best UK Consultancies list again fairly
Yeah,
recently.
it's the Statista, which is an international polling organization and statistics organization, work with the Financial Times to survey 1,000 companies every year to make a list of the top 100 leading UK management consultants. And we've been, fortunate enough to make that list for 8 years in a row, which I'm I'm just actually quite proud of, because we're tiny, and to be on that list it says that our story has had some impact because people know who we are despite being absolutely minuscule in size.
Oh, that's fascinating. And well done, Chris. And I know it's very well deserved and a great reflection of what you do. So I'm going to lead the conversation a little, if it's okay with you, because there's one thing that's fascinated me in the conversations that we've had, and that is you talk about going and speaking to people. You love getting into conversations, and you are one of the most truly curious people that I know about getting into conversations and speaking to people. But you've always had this delightful way of how you then rephrase it. So I come from a training background, and the training industry is built on using associates, and even the industry trying to hide the fact that they use associates. If you're working as an associate, you couldn't tell people, or you keep it quiet and hidden. And it was always, client must know you're working under our brand. And the phrase has always fascinated me, the way you describe things. I go out and meet good people, and I discuss with them about the challenges that they're having. And then at the end, there's a point where I generally, because of the size of my network, I'll turn around and say something like, "Oh, you should meet so and." That's always fascinating, because most people would say, "I'll go away and do a proposal," and you'll keep those people on the delivery side. You would then turn that into, here's the offer of what we could do as GameShift. But you've always introduced it to me anyway in the conversation that I need to introduce you to this person. But you'd probably then end up doing the project if it came about, but you led with introducing them to a specific person. Have I got the gist of that from our conversations?
Yeah, but this goes back a really long way into my history. I've been in consulting one way or another for it's alarmingly close to 40 years. I was in Pricewaterhouse and then PricewaterhouseCoopers and then Ashridge Consulting and then GameShift. And I was never the main technical expert for everything. My thing has always been asking people what's going on and then finding good people for them to talk to who either are real experts in something or who've got a really good creative way of solving a problem that nobody's an expert in. And my role in the world is to introduce good people to good people. And right at the foundation of that is being interested and listening. And for me, that's at the heart of relationship building. If you mean that, all the doors are open.
Oh, Chris, I love it. But interesting, you're still doing the same message there, and you're not varying from that. So you don't then go and say, sounds like you've got this problem. GameShift can help you. Don't you ever feel that if you're bringing another person in, the organization might then want to end up working with that person independently of you?
But that's okay. So, it was different when I was Pricewaterhouse. So when I was Pricewaterhouse, my job obviously was to sell Pricewaterhouse. And I think I probably would have been fired if I'd gone, let me introduce somebody from Coopers. Or, of course, later on they joined and I did. But I think GameShift, part of our reputation is based on trust. And that includes our ability to say, actually, we're not the best people to do that. This thing you're asking for, we don't work in that way. But would you like to meet someone who does work in that way? And we can introduce them. And people really respect that because we're not at the door clamoring for, we can do that, we can do that, we can do
Yeah.
that. And then often a year or two later, people will phone back and go, I've been wanting to talk to you for ages because you're the only consultant who ever said to me, hire somebody else. And I did. And now I'm ready to do the thing that you were talking about. Now we can work in
Yeah.
that way. And I think we're patient. We don't have marble palaces on the high street and a fleet of luxury yachts to service. We can wait and we can give the work to others. And sometimes what goes around comes around and they refer work to us.
Fascinating. Brilliant. But sometimes you do then, the people that you refer in do work under your umbrella and you end up doing the business as GameShift, even though
That's
you
right. There are 20 partners who are part of the closer in GameShift constellation. And when we introduce them, they will do work as GameShift.
Yeah, I love it. I do like it. It's such a lovely way that you do it. And I'll move on from that now because I don't want to bore people with it. But it's always struck. It's such a lovely way. You're introducing the person rather than saying, like, we can solve that challenge.
Yeah.
Chris, I guess, so the next thing is you've grown through your network. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, some of the mistakes that you've made that you took your biggest learnings from?
Because I'm an educator at heart, I'm going to say I don't actually think it's mistakes. I think it's
Yeah.
experiments that have had results. And sometimes the results have been delightful, and sometimes the results have been surprising or painful. I don't think they're actually mistakes because we just tried stuff. Often
Yeah.
we've no idea what the outcome's going to be. We've tried it and, oh, that's happened. And that cost a lot and didn't go anywhere or whatever it is. So things I've learned from, I had this fantasy when we started GameShift that if we just got experienced, good people who were already existing practitioners there, I thought everybody would work a bit like I do, and we would just talk together and they'd all go out and tell the story and work would just flow in because they'd all be great at doing this business development. Not a clue. In general, I found a lot of consultants are not good at this at all. They're really good at selling from a lead, but not very good at doing the curiosity-driven relationship stuff. And that's been a surprise, but it's also become a differentiator because there's a smaller group of people doing that. Yeah. So if you're watching this podcast, no need to do it in a hurry.
Well, we haven't even talked about what your little pond is. You said you play in a small pond. So
Yeah.
are you happy to share that now you've just said what you
Yeah.
just said?
Yeah. We're partners mostly to executive teams who are facing times of systems change and systems challenge. Now, to some extent, you could say that's everybody, isn't it? Because we're all on this planet and look, climate crisis, etc. But the sectors we tend to do most in are right now the food system, the health system in its broadest sense, and higher education, universities. And these are all systems in distress, systems with financial pressures, systems where there's a massive political, demographic, technological impact. The health service just cannot survive by working harder and spending more money. There isn't the money and there aren't any more hours. So they have to reinvent something. And we work with leadership teams in that situation because we can help them to think radically differently and more connectedly and connect up their system. And that's what we do.
Okay, superb. Thank you very much, Chris.
Mm.
I want to just jump back to what you said.
Yeah.
So before that, about most consultants not being very good at business development. If that is true, and I concur, I see it a lot, whether you believe it or not, if you're listening to us too. But if that's okay, what's the best route for people then? Is it learn, say I work with 40 plus years consultants, i.e. age, because they've been a consultant in a big corporation or coming out of corporate and wanting to be a consultant. So you're over 40, you're not very good at business development. Would it be better to learn the skills or partner with someone else like you that has the skills? What would you recommend?
I think lots of consultants are actually quite good at the selling their own thing when it gets to the point of, oh, I can see that's what this client wants. Let me sell them it. So it's not give me a proposal to write. I can write it. It's the earlier stage that I find people less good at, the starting from cold, finding where there might be half an opportunity and bringing it to the stage we just talked about. I'd say two things about it, really. One is don't think of it as selling. It's about relationships. If you can coach, frankly, if you can coach, you can sell. If you can coach, you can develop business. If you can listen and have relationships with people you don't know in the pub. I can't do that. I'm rubbish at that. But if you can do that, you can do this. It's about relationships. I think there's a switch that gets flipped where people go, oh, it's selling. Selling's bad. I can't do it. No, you're helping people to solve a problem. You're helping people to find a solution to something that's worrying them. So that would be one piece of advice. Don't think of it as selling. Think of it as relationship building and creating a better world. The other thing is, if you really don't want to do that and you need the proposal and the lead, then do partner with people and be more like Peter. You can use Peter because what you're doing I've seen you do with some of my colleagues in GameShift helps them to tell their story better and create the relationships. And that works. Partnering with people who can do that is good.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I wasn't asking for an advert, so that wasn't the point, but brilliant. Thank you so much. And I absolutely concur that bizarrely, most of the skills that the top consultants I work with have are the exact same ones. Once you get this aura of selling, it's asking great questions, being inquisitive, being able to put disparate bits of information together quite quickly on the fly in the moment and lead that into the next question is what consultants do, but they just have this thing. And personally, I think a lot of it is perpetrated by a lot of the narrative around the top consulting companies, where there's even a book, I think, called Never Say Sell, and it was you partner, but then they had big consulting organizational structures around them, and they didn't have to. You were brought in, put on a client, and then you had your next 25 years mapped out. Um, So what makes you different then, Chris? Why have you If let me ask it a different way, if that's okay. Do you have a system? Do you approach your network systematically, or how do you manage to be so effective with your network?
I don't know if objectively, if somebody came and audited how I work with my network, if I'm any good at all in that sense. I, I don't have a system. I'm just genuinely interested in people, get loads of people connecting with me every week. I start genuine conversations with them about stuff. And some of it leads to opportunities where I go, "Oh, I've done it today. I've introduced two people to a couple of people. Neither of those are game shift. One was an academic in a university and one was a monk. It, I'm not doing this entirely to make a buck, but some of it does lead to work for people in my game shift constellation, and that's also brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. But you are very good at it, Chris, and I know, but it's that genuine curiosity that's everything.
Yeah, and Peter, I think one of the things that really matters is nobody likes to be given the. I'm sorry, I'm old enough to think of Bristol, who used to sell brushes door to door. Nobody wants a hard sell about you must buy my brushes. I'm not interested in you. I'm just interested in selling brushes. Nobody wants that. But if you're genuine and you're bringing something, you're interested in what's going on, and if you can help, and if not, you can refer them to someone else. You can, if you can't do either of those, you're just interested in them. People know if you're genuine, and being genuine goes a long way in a
Do you
world where
think
lots of stuff is fake.
I was just about to say, do you think that's something that you can teach or develop skills in, or is it just inherent in your nature?
I think you can definitely learn to fake it effectively. I've seen people do that. After all, people win Oscars for it. Actors act, and they're really believable, such that we go and we cry at the cinema. Yeah. But I think there are people who aren't just genuine about it, and that matters. So I think if you're genuinely interested in people and you're not using it in business development, if you're not using it to grow your connections, that's a shame because it's a missed opportunity because it's a golden thing. And you may never see it as it may never strike you that you're selling. Like, I'm just a really good coach, but I couldn't sell. Actually, you can. But it's not about, once upon a time, I used to sell advertising space for a living. Nobody in the world really wants that. It was a school of hard knocks sale of a school of learning to sell. I don't do that. I don't have to do that. I'll never have to do anything that hard again because now I just talk to people about things that really matter to them and they really want to buy it. So it's easy.
Oh, brilliant. Chris, there's so many questions going through my mind. Yes, and so do you
Okay, it's like,
your approach to the market and to business is relationship based, is conversational based, and getting to speak to good people constantly. How does that then work into what you provide? Do those conversations prove formative on then what you take to the market as your solution? Do you constantly change the solution that you take based on what are telling you they need, or do you have fixed services?
we have a simple focus, which I think is relatively unchanged. We have a complexity and systems view of the world, and we consult in that space. So we help people work with the difference between what's known and what's unknown, and how you can be an effective leadership team if you're innovating into the unknown and you want to help your colleagues, either your exec team or your whole organization, to work better in creating a solution where things aren't certain. That's like a, all our work has something to do with that. How it turns up could vary all the time. So in some places it's coaching. In another place, it might be running a large event. In another place, it might be inventing a simulation to teach a whole level in an organization how to do something, how to explore something. So I think it's both, it's got a purpose and a center of gravity that's fairly constant, and like a thousand flowers that are created as the need arises and the new needs crop up.
Do you think, because I sensed that, I wasn't leading, but I sensed that. Do you think that position is dying out a bit? I grew up learning around consulting, reading books by the likes of Alan Weiss and The Trusted Advisor and David
Mhm.
Maister. Look at Alan Weiss. He was this typical expert consultant where he talks of, he gets in front of a C-level exec, he asks the questions, he's very good at asking the questions to diagnose what the underlying problems are, the symptoms, the underlying problems. But then one day he could be working on sales and he could be working on customer service. The deliverables were constantly changing, if you like, but he was positioned as that expert authority and the mechanism was constantly changing across
Yeah.
all areas of the business. Do you think it's still viable to do that now in consulting, where you can be that kind of that trusted advisor, that visible authority, where you can really get to grips with the issues they're facing and then design something off the back of it that's constantly changing?
It's much easier, I think, for people. We lose a lot of work from people who want a solution in a box and a neat label on the side, who won't say, no, tell us the 5 things you're going to do, the 3 clear outcomes and the price. We go, it's not us. If you're clear enough that you want that, you really don't want us. The point at which you want us is when you're not even quite sure what the question is. Yeah. What sort of maternity services might help women of color to have a better birth experience in 2035? Nobody in the world knows the answer to that question. You can't buy the solution in a box. You need to think about it in a different way. And we are co-explorers. We'll help you not to fall over your own bias, not to just get the same people in a room with the same data. So we're halfway between a rigorous think tank and a coach, a team coach, to help you get out of your own way and not fall into your own stuck patterns. Is it dying out? I hope not, because I think there's a creative art to it. Uh, can it all be replaced by AI? Not yet. I think the expert solution is going to be replaced before the creative collaborative solution. But maybe eventually both the sellers and the buyers will be replaced by robots. We'll all send our avatars to work. I don't know, but
Is
not
that why
yet.
we lie on a beach, Chris?
If that's an offer, Peter, let,
Not
that's,
together.
I'm going to Portugal for in a week. You can always pop down.
Oh, that's fascinating, Chris. So ultimately, so you can't product, the whole thing is productized consulting, which allows you for repetition and everything else. So your positioning is based on the fact that it's absolutely impossible to productize what you do.
I think we can describe it enough, the thinking partner, team coach, collaborative exploring, that people know enough to call us. And like in the Financial Times listing, it comes under a couple of headings. We're listed under people and performance. We're listed under organizations, like organizations, growth and futures and change. So there's like some buckets of problems or issues. So if you've got a group of people who you want to perform better, you've got an issue you want to get people to innovate. Yeah, you could look at someone who's got a one answer in a dog and pony show, and if that fits you, brilliant, hire them. Or you can look for someone who helps you to think about it differently. If that's what you want, brilliant, we'll talk. And
Fantastic. And you mentioned AI, and personally, I think that's where just tremendous value is going to be added. People are, yes, you can get AI to crunch data and stuff, but it's applied brain thinking based on expertise and history and evaluation
yeah,
is where the next big thing is in consulting, continuing what it's always been.
yeah. But do you know, I don't know if we've got time. I don't have not just enjoying the conversation, Peter. But I'm also still a visiting professor at universities, and I talk about this what we call futures work, how you collaborate to get a more clear perception of an unknown future. And these days, I pair jointly with my AI assistant, Claude. I will actually ask Claude live, how should we think about this? What can you tell me about it? What am I missing? What if we look through the eyes of such and such a writer or thinker? And that comes up live, but it doesn't tell this group. You can use AI to create all kinds of new questions, but it can't then tell you how to interact as a team, to collaborate well, how to get out of your stuck patterns, how not to let fear get in the way. And that's where you need someone with a bit of experience to help you with the group dynamics. Claude or ChatGPT can give you a list of what the
Yeah.
group dynamics would be, but it can't spot when it's happening. It can't spot that little wrinkle on the side of your face when you're curious that is different to that one when you're smiling. It can't spot that. So it doesn't know what to do with the human dynamics. When
Conscious about my wrinkles now, Chris. That's all.
it was a lovely wrinkle, don't worry.
So, Chris, bringing back into the business development realm before,
Yeah.
because we could chat for ages about many different things. You had the big organizational experience, like big infrastructure experience, if you like, and then went out and had a successful consulting business. What advice would you give to someone trying to do the same thing, either starting up a consulting business or moving out of one of the big consulting houses, setting up on their own?
Mm. It's a really good question because it's not an easy thing or an automatic thing. It does bear thinking about. First piece of advice is don't assume that the world will beat a path to your door. The world probably will not. Having something that you can be known for, you don't have to be an expert in it right now, but you're interested enough to develop a point of view, which doesn't have to be the answers. It can just be an area of work with some good questions. And for me, I would say, offer to the world reasons to talk to you. You know, content of value. It's not about you, it's about solutions for your clients. So give people a reason to want to phone you up and say, this is an interesting person. They should be in my world. They're making me think about things I don't think about. They're making me ask questions that I hadn't even realized were questions. And I'm delighted they're, you know, something like that that gives people a reason to want you in their life.
Fantastic. Chris, my tough question. Feel free not to answer if you don't want to. But was it all smooth running for you you and your co-founder, obviously, in the first couple of years? Did you?
Nothing's ever been smooth running. I've never known any smooth running in anything. No, actually, smooth running. No, we're a tiny business. First of all, Philip, my
Mm,
co-founder and partner in this, would tell you I'm rubbish at running a business anyway. Philip runs the business in many ways, and that's another piece of advice. You know, if you're going to set up a business and you're not really a business person, get someone to work with you who is. Don't try and do everything yourself. And we have plenty of days where I spent over the years, many thousands. We've been lucky to be big enough to have 20 and 30 and 40,000 pounds spends on marketing and different experiments. Some of them have been rubbish and some of them have been great. No, we've paid for people to build lists for us. We've paid for people to open their black books and introduce us. We've sponsored conferences, and you just never can tell what's going to work. And the main thing is, I think, is find ways of experimenting small and learning fast, because it lots of it will go wrong. Expect it to go wrong. So don't bet the whole farm on everything working. Expect some of it to go wrong and learn from it as quick as you can.
uh Brilliant. Yeah, and you and I concur on that. So how did you, I've never actually asked you this question. So do you remember when you and Philippa set up, how did you get your first, say, 5 clients?
Relationships, networks. One of the We were very lucky. So we worked for Ashridge Consultancy. Philippa and I met at Ashridge. We were joint leaders of a strategy practice there. And as part of the business school contract, you had a certain number of days, it was like 25 days or something, that you could do for your own private consulting work while you were still employed at the business school. So Philippa and I already had the start of GameShift years before we went full time. So when we left, and we left because there was a takeover and the new parent organization just wasn't that interested in the stuff we did. Um, we already had some snippets of work and we grew those. And that was one way. And the second way we did it was into our network, we were invited to partner on bids with larger firms. Said, we've got this solution, but we need someone who does this bit that we know you're really good at. Will you come and join with us? And very often we were able to grow that little bit, which was like one day. I remember going to a client in France. Can you help us? Can you come and do a keynote on this issue for one day? I think we worked with them for 8 years
Wow.
because yes, we can. We could do a keynote, but I'd just be interested. "Oh, tell me more about why you want a keynote. What are you trying to do?" Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you think a keynote will do that? Are there any other ways? Something that's got a bigger bang for your buck than a keynote? Oh, what about if we just play with getting people talking to each other differently instead of listening to someone on a stage? What if we don't have a stage? Yeah. What if we bring in some artists to work with the people? And we grew it. Instead of turning up for half an hour to do a keynote, we designed and facilitated a 400-person event. And then they asked us to do all their events like that in America and then in Europe and various other places, because it was a really juicy event that changed the way their company worked, changed the way they thought about connecting, and that they invented new stuff in the room because they met in a new way. Loads of experiences like that.
Oh, that's amazing. So you never actually ended up delivering a keynote?
One of the golden things in consulting is very often the client doesn't ask for the right thing.
Yeah.
They can. There are people in the world who sell keynotes, and they usually do it at a really high price. You can get tens of thousands of pounds if you're a rock star keynote speaker. So good luck to them. But I don't think there's any keynotes out there that change the world mostly. What happens is if the keynote's really good, it sparks some conversations, which then have a life of their own. Now, you could just have the keynote, or you could do away with the keynote. And instead of hiring the rock star, you just say, what are the conversations we need to have? How can we have them? Because we've got loads of inspiration ourselves in this room. So for this conference I was talking about, we ran actually spontaneously, we weren't going to do it, but we ran a speed dating. I remember somebody coming onto the stage and said, look, I've got this product for this client. It's already a client of our company, but I need someone who's an expert in organic chemistry of screen technology. And someone about 300 meters away, far side of this venue, put their hand up and said, I've got a PhD in that. Got it. By the time they left, an hour later, they'd got the seed of a new product for this client. And there were half a dozen of those new products came out of this one speed dating thing, which is just one conversation in a conference.
So what I love about that, Chris, is, and it's something that I work with my clients in, is so you met an express need, not with a position of falling in line and saying yes, we can do that. You showed your status, your expertise, by not straight away saying no, we won't do that, but you question the motivation behind it, and actually that expanded out into something very different. Absolutely, that just that snippet there demonstrates your skill and your expertise. And I pointed it out because I want people listening to really be present to what you've just done. But then I guess the follow-on question of that for me is, if you just said yes, I'll come and run the keynote, how much do you think that client would have been worth to you as a result of that over the years? And the second point is, how much value did they get that wouldn't have happened if you'd just done what they asked for?
Don't know, and I don't know. Yeah. So I have done keynotes that have led to ongoing conversations. It's possible. We don't measure the value because we're tiny and we're not trying to sell an army of young men in blue suits and young women in blue suits who go in and stay in the company. We don't have an army of consultants to put in. So we're not there. We see the conversation start. The company's already really good at doing stuff. If they weren't good at doing stuff, they couldn't hire somebody like us. They wouldn't pay our bills. But they're already good at doing things. We don't need to spoon feed them to do their jobs. We just need to help them spark off things that they're missing.
Pretty, yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Chris. I think what I was trying to lead a little is probably you would have lost a lot of revenue if you just done what they asked, but also they probably wouldn't have got the value out of the engagement.
When I was younger, I was probably arrogant enough to say something like, never give the client what they ask for. Now I'd say, be interested enough in what the client's really trying to do to help them get it, because what they're asking for may not be the most effective way they could go. They may have seen a really good keynote and know that that's what they would like. They do. Boy, do I know some good people for that. But if that's not the best thing, and if they're curious and want to explore something, I know some people who can do that.
No. Yeah, spot on, Chris. So, Chris, we're coming to the kind of the end. I'm very conscious of your time. Is the hook of the question really? Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that I should have asked you to get maximum value out of you as a contributor on the podcast?
Again, I really don't know. We could talk for ages. I mean, I have silver bullets. I don't believe really in silver bullets. Yeah. If I was to give people a gift or a piece of advice, it would be just keep learning, experiment, notice what happens, learn. Because I think it's really easy in a consulting business to be so busy doing your thing, or so busy looking for work to sell your thing, that you stop paying attention, you stop learning new stuff, you stop being interested. And that's where things go wrong. So long as you're staying alive, doing work that's alive, being interested in the living edge of things, good things happen. Yeah. It may not grow the next McKinsey or the next Price Waterhouse, but I personally don't want to do that. If you want to do that, I'm not your man. You need somebody else on the podcast.
Yeah, no, fair. So you and the person I interviewed last, it's not what I want. It's not my thing. And I know you said it in the caveat that I had to that, which is just pulling out that what you did say is keep learning, but implement as well, because you can't run the experiment if you don't implement. It's no good just learning if you're not putting it into practice. And
I should have said, we haven't really talked about the academic side at all, but our practice in GameShift is called action inquiry and action research, and it's called action for a reason. You have to do something. Yeah. You do something and you're really interested in what are the consequences. And we're interested in what are the tiny differences? What difference does it make? How can we improve the right and amplify the right differences? And how can we get rid of the experiments that go the wrong way and draw out of them the bits that are going the right way?
Chris is brilliant. So, Chris, if people want to find you after this podcast, either because they're an inquisitive soul, or they want to hire you, whichever way it is, where will they find you?
I think I'm pretty easy to find. Gameshift.co.uk. Can we put links somewhere, Peter? If we can put a link.
Yeah,
and I'm on LinkedIn as well. I write a lot. GameShift, as well as being a consultancy, we're a public platform where we hold free pop-ups. We host people who've written new books, people with great ideas. They don't work for us. Nobody's charged to come to these. Nobody gets paid for presenting. They're just good people coming to talk to good people about good stuff. And it's all on the website, gameshift.co.uk, ideas. It's all there for free.
Oh, Chris, fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the thing that I'll take away from this is get good people talking to good people. And if that was probably the motto that you would have for me, that's really stood out. Chris, thank you ever so much. You've been an exceptional guest, and thank you for coming on with me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. See you soon.